is here. Let's see. This is going to be very challenging for me today. Hi, everybody. Looks like we are live on YouTube and Instagram, TikTok. As always, we are live. If I can ask you guys to help me out here. Mira is not, she's taking the day off as well as she should. She works really hard for Community for International Arab. Can everyone see me on TikTok? Let's start there. Can everyone see me? Because I cannot see these comments. Oh my God, this is going to be pretty hard. Let me see. Let's see. Oopsie. Let's see. All right. Thank you. Everyone can see. Hello. Hello. All right. TikTok's ready to go. I think we are live on YouTube. All right. Welcome, everybody. We are going to start in about 5 minutes. This is part 2 of two-part series on Arab and emotions. Now, of course, as human beings, we all have emotions. However, within our cultural context, emotions can mean different things. And so we talk about this from a place of love, awareness. This is not to put anyone down. For those that are new to Community for International Arab, my name is Tiffany Totah. I'm a marriage and family therapist located in Los Angeles, California. I'm Palestinian American, and I began emotional health and wellness for our Arab community, all throughout my career. However, probably about 1.5 years ago, we started Community for International Arab because the needs of our community were pretty great, especially over the last few years. So what it created was more of a demand on the mental health system. And the reality is there aren't a lot of Arab therapists. There is definitely a shortage. I recently did a deep dive into Middle Eastern countries, and it looks like for the 22 countries, less than 2% of their national budgets are geared towards mental health. Now, I know some of you out there who like to create divide will say, well, only in the West we have mental health, and we don't have mental health in our country. I know that is not to be true. And so this platform, this community is for those that are feeling isolated and alone, that they will feel less alone, that they may come together with a community that may understand them or may understand their situation. Whenever I speak to Arab from all over the world, really, there's a sense of isolation, a sense that they're alone. And I too felt that growing up. I felt very alone in what I was feeling and experiencing. And when I noticed that the younger generation was also experiencing that, I felt it was important for me to be of service and to give back in any way that I can. And this is the result of that. All right, welcome everybody. Looks like we have more and more people tuning in to Wadih Wednesday, where we can find our clarity, awareness, and understanding of how our emotions may affect our way of living. Now, it's important to understand the intention of this live is to normalize emotions and reduce the shame. Whenever I work within our cultural context, there is so much shame around having feelings, and to give people simple tools to understand and regulate this emotional world that we're in. It's more important that we frame it that your emotions are not weakness or a loss of faith, that we are here to normalize emotions without attacking our culture or our parents or our faith, no matter what faith you are from. All right. So let's see. It looks like people are tuning in. Anybody want to share where they are coming in from? We always like to connect before we get started. Welcome, everybody. It is Wadah Wednesday. Tiffany Tota here, and we're going to talk about emotions. I don't know about you guys, but the last few weeks have been brutal and so much emotional intensity. So let's see. We've got Muhammad. He's coming in from Tunisia. I love that. Let's see. Because Mira is not here, those of you that have been joining our lives every Wednesday, Mira is my right-hand person who definitely helps with flagging comments and everything else. So if there's any disgusting comments written in Arabic, please help me out. If there's any disgusting comments written in English, please help me out. I try and flag them. What's more important? Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Habibti. I appreciate you. Because, you know, for all the respect that we talk about in our culture, some of the comments are extremely disrespectful. So let's see. All right, welcome. Let's see who else. Where's everyone else coming in from? I cannot see these comments. I got to lift this up a little bit. Let's see. Where's everyone coming in from? Oh, thank you. Callie. Yoya is in the house. Let's see, from Mars, G1, thank you. Yes, I love the extraterrestrials that are joining our live today. Egypt, Yusuf from Libya. Welcome. Algeria's here. Algeria again. We've got Belle, California. Let's see. Dubai. We've got Palestine in the house. We have Morocco, Kenya. I was told that the most pure sunsets can be seen from Kenya. And I read that as a little girl and had always wanted to visit your country one day. It'll be on the bucket list for sure. Somalia, Lebanon. Hi, Maya. All right. Thank you, Heavyweight, for confirming that. Let's see. G1. Oh gosh. Okay. Do I need to delete? Oh God, somebody help me out here. Where's Mita when I need her? Okay. You know, for the fun ruiners on our live, we're here to talk about emotions. And a lot of times it's about regulating your emotions. And one of the most empowering things you can do for yourself is to learn how to regulate your emotional state. Now, when we come from a culture where things are happening externally, internally, having that emotional regulation can be extremely difficult. So this is about giving yourself compassion. So I'm not going to go over what we went through last week. I'm going to talk about, let's do a check-in. We're going to talk about the 5 core emotions. For those of you out there, did you learn to stay quiet to keep the peace? Yes or no? Think about growing up. What did you learn about expressing emotions? Did you learn to stay quiet to keep the peace? Yes or no? You guys can put a thumbs up emoji, thumbs down. What are people's experiences around being able to express emotion? Were you allowed to? Was there emotional suppression? What was going on in your family around feelings? Were only certain people in your family able to express emotion? Thank you, Maya. Yes, more often than not within our cultural context, depending on the family, how open or closed they are, most of us were taught, khalikum saktin, stay quiet. Don't say anything. Thank you, Ahmad. Yes. Let's say you had a cousin that put you down or said something that really upset you. Stay quiet. Don't make waves. Maybe your mom, you were watching her get abused by either your dad's family or her own family putting her down. And you saw her perhaps stoic in that, but you could feel her pain. You were taught more often than not to stay quiet, because how we move to make sure that the nas and the people are comfortable versus being able to voice the pain, that may be inflicted upon you by somebody else. So what does that mean for you growing up? You learn in your romantic partnerships not to express yourself, and then you build resentment. In your work relationships, you may be asked to do all kinds of projects, take on more work than what your role requires, because you were taught to stay quiet, keep the peace, keep it moving, khali mashi, right? And what is the implication on you? Increased people pleasing, not getting your needs met, having poor boundaries. And that can create a life of suffering if you are not aware of that happening to you. So with that said, let's take a look at the 5 core emotions. Number 1, this is one I see a lot in our culture, anger. The purpose of anger is to protect boundaries. Now, what happens is when we ignore things that happen, so as a kid, you were taught to stay quiet, and then you had people cross your boundaries time and time and time again, which turns into resentment or rage. So you have to remember, boundaries are being crossed. And more often than not, because we have a very high frustration tolerance, you have allowed those boundaries to be crossed for a very long time. So you may have examples of parents that are quiet and then they explode, because more often than not, boundaries were crossed, like for years. Or maybe someone rages because they're not feeling safe. So a healthy question for you to ask yourself when you're angry or feeling that anger in the body and then you suppress it, I'm going to encourage you, do not suppress it. Don't act upon it, but do not suppress it, and ask yourself, I'm feeling angry right now. What boundary was crossed? It could be someone putting you down and you didn't feel empowered to speak up. Perhaps you were asked to do 6, 7, 8, 9, 20 things while you're completely stressed out by your family, while ukhdik is in the corner, a hook is in the corner, not doing anything, and you're just taking it on. Now, an important distinction within our cultural context, because you will hear this a lot from parents, is if you get angry, that's a sign of disrespect. Now, anger is not disrespect. It's a feeling. Now, how you act upon it can move into disrespect. Yet, if you're feeling angry, there are reasons for that, and for you to take some time to explore what are those reasons. Anger typically is an unmet boundary. Now, we make jokes, ما في عنا boundaries in our culture, and that's part of why we see so much frustration. Okay? So with that said, how many of you suppress your anger or are not allowed to feel your anger? Let me take a look at the comments here. How many of you are not allowed to feel your anger? Anger is a dangerous emotion. Anybody? خلاص أنا بديش أسمع حالي the whole time. Can you guys chime in, please? Help me out. Was anger an acceptable emotion? Thank you, Alif. So was anger was anger an acceptable emotion? Were you able to freely express your anger? Okay. Well, if you weren't, and if you're a parent and your child has an outburst, thank you, Noor, anger was never acceptable. That's true. Anger can be, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper here. You would be considered crazy or disrespectful. Thank you, Crystal. That's right. And As someone who is deemed the angry person in my family, I can say it took me a long time not to wear that label. I would say I'm the snapper. I'm the one that goes off. Family members may have felt unsafe around me because I was screaming my head off, trying to get people to hear me and see me. And as I've gone through my healing journey and really working on not snapping, well, they still may associate you with being the snapper. So even if you've moved in forward in your healing, there may still be this identity that you carry. And so I'm going to encourage you to let go of owning I'm the snapper or I'm this way in my family unit, and to turn it around and say there's reasons why I may be feeling this way, and not to absorb the projections of the people around you. I feel anger as well can be a very powerful emotion if used to progress forward. I know my anger has really fueled this platform to say, how come Arab are not allowed to have emotions? How come the world sees us in a way that, in the ways that they do, and negate all of our experiences? And so I'm just saying, sometimes you could use your anger as a momentum or as an energy to move you forward in your life. Now, let's take a look at the second emotion, sadness. The purpose of sadness is to release and to process loss. Now, within our cultural context, we have an immense amount of loss. You may grieve the loss of a parent or a sibling or a relative. You may be grieving the loss of your childhood, grieving the loss of the parent you wish you had. The grief of the sadness of not being able to be who you are, because we come from a society that will harm you for being who you are. And this is specifically to our LGBT community. So when you don't process your sadness and you let it go, when ignored, it turns into numbness or depression. So we have a phrase that we say, you got to feel it to heal it. And when you do not heal your sadness, or we use, and I'm not saying this isn't helpful, but we use, God or our faith, which is a beautiful thing. However, if you don't lean into why you're feeling that way, it can lead to emotional numbness and lead to further depression. So you wonder why some days it may be hard for you to get up. Other days you feel stuck. Well, you may want to take a look at and ask yourself, what am I grieving? Is it the loss of a relationship? Is it an inability to express your grief? I remember crying I was very young, and I was crying for an uncle that had passed. I might have been 10 years old. And I got berated. Lish inti bitaiti, khalas inti, uskoti. It still causes me pain thinking about that. And I was taught at a very young age, do not grieve. Do not grieve. You are not allowed to grieve, because in your grief, it may make other people feel uncomfortable. Now, at 10 years old, I didn't understand that. Of course not. How could you? Yet what I was taught is I cannot connect with my sadness. I was able to connect with my anger, but what is anger? Anger is unprocessed grief. And so what does that mean for you? Sadness does not break you. It heals you. We're so afraid because we're afraid the tears will not stop, and the tears will stop. And sometimes you have to grieve deeply, that guttural cry, to release all that grief from your body. And so as you remember, let me say this again. Sadness does not break you. It heals you. It's the very thing of leaning into that sadness and saying, gosh, I have so much grief. And if you don't connect to that grief, your ability to be able to live in your fullness may be impacted. Any questions so far on the two core emotions of anger and sadness? So 2 questions to ask yourself. What boundary was being crossed? And what am I grieving? Any questions so far? Let's see. I don't see any questions on Instagram, and I don't see any questions on YouTube. Okay. Anybody? Let's see. Okay. Oh, yes. Go ahead, Sue, if you have a question. It's so crazy. We were never taught these emotions can be positive. Oh, yeah. I've used my anger and channeled it into so many possible ways. A lot of advocacy was created as a result of anger. People have done incredible things as a result of their grief and loss to say, I don't want anyone else to feel what I'm feeling. And so you can definitely channel these emotions into helpful ways of service. However, you won't be able to do that until you can lean into that. Let's go to, if you guys have a question, go ahead and ask it. How can I process unresolved anger from childhood? Very good question. I would encourage you to do a life timeline. And if you can remember, mark the moments where your boundaries were being crossed. Could be very little. Maybe you were playing and you were yelled at for just doing what children do, play, have fun. Maybe you were too exuberant and then they shut you down. You take a look and you make a list and you say, okay, what boundaries were crossed? And then what meaning can I make of that? How has these situations impact my life today? What resentments am I building or that I have? And you write down all the resentments. And then from there, you take a look and you say, all right, what was my part in the resentment? Have you allowed this where we take accountability? We don't just blame people. Like, what accountability do we have in that? Well, you may have allowed other people to cross your boundaries. Now, within our cultural context, many of us, we were not allowed to speak up. And then you recognize that I was powerless in that moment, but how can I empower myself now? Without doing that inventory, that list of resentments, the anger will continue to fester. So that would be one technique I would encourage you to do. You'll be surprised. You'll be like, gosh, I hold a lot of resentment, a lot of anger towards a lot of people. And it's not even about the other people. It's about what was it within you. And when you're a kid, it's having compassion for that little person inside you and recognizing that you're still allowing people to harm you. And what can you do gently, slowly, or create some changes in your life? And sometimes we have to face hard truths when we're doing these lists because I always say therapy or doing this healing journey, some folks may need to leave your life. Let's see, Sue. I hope that was helpful. I think it affects my life and my decisions. Yes, of course it does. Of course it does. Because if your anger overshadows or your resentment is what's setting the tone for your life, well, in my experience, it just continues to create more suffering. So now let's go to the third emotion. Oh, yes, I'll get to that question in a minute. Let me finish with the third emotion. So we have anger, sadness. Number 3 is fear. Now, your fear is to keep you safe. So anytime you're afraid, your body is alerting you, I'm not feeling safe. And this is where it may turn into, when ignored, turns into anxiety or control. Now, if you know it, I know in my experience, this is not a blanket in my experience, we have many Arab parents, or this may be you, where this need for control is very, very intense. Needing to map out every scenario, ruminating on every possible outcome, that usually comes from, everything stems from childhood. Your world may not have been safe. So as an adult, you want to be able to mitigate not feeling out of control by controlling everything. Now, this could keep you from intimacy with your partner. The people around you may find it difficult to be around you because of this high level of control. And I'm talking about controlling everything. Not being able to let go. Now, if you remember, it's because you're not feeling safe. Uncontrolled anxiety, having your cortisol levels revved up all the time. And then I have a video that talks about chronic anxiety. They say Arab are depressed. And I said, well, is it the chronic anxiety that leads to the depression? Because they're constantly hic and netavzine, like tight. You can even watch your mom or your dad, and their cortisol levels are just high. So what does that mean for you? When you're feeling afraid or you're feeling nervous, it may be important, and it could be with anything. You tap in, maybe you feel the anxiety in your chest, in your belly. Sometimes you could feel numbness in your fingers and toes. You may feel a tension headache around here. Depends. Everybody's body is different in how they respond to when they're not feeling safe. The immediate question is, what feels unsafe to me right now? Because a lot of the fear is past fear that's not necessarily the reality of today's fear. Your nervous system is responding to past unsafety, not what's happening in front of you. So by acknowledging what feels unsafe right now, wow, I'm feeling unsafe because I have a meeting with my manager and I'm afraid that we go to these extremes. I'm going to get fired. When you go in, and more often than not with Arab clients, it's like they're getting a promotion. Yet that fear of authority or that fear of feedback can be very anxiety provoking. So you ask yourself, what feels unsafe right now? And if there's nothing in your present that is causing unsafety, know it's something from the past. And so you just bring yourself back to the present. Is there anything that I need to feel threatened by or fearful of? More often than not, no, unless you're in a war-torn country. Let me just put that out there, okay? The fourth emotion, which, oh my gosh, I sometimes as an Arab therapist, sometimes I get overwhelmed with the amount of shame that we have in our culture. There's so much shame. You will call it guilt, yet more often than not, you're not doing anything wrong. It is the intense amount of shame around core beliefs of not being good enough, not being perfect, fear, this shame of not being successful enough. Now, The purpose of shame is social awareness. Now, we come from a culture where the nas, our community, our belonging, that social awareness is a beautiful thing, can be a healthy thing. Yet when it's toxic, which is what I'm seeing over the generations, is this social awareness is moving into, it controls your identity, it destroys your identity. When people use shame to what are the nas gonna say when you're, I don't know, wearing your hair a certain way, or you have piercings, or maybe you want a tattoo, or maybe you love the person that you love from a different culture or the same sex, and all of a sudden this social awareness turns into, I want to destroy your identity because ana khayef what the nas are going to say. Now, this is why in my experience, that there's so much shame, because there's all these rules and no one is asking themselves, is this about control, or is this about allowing people to be who they are, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable? And so a healthy question when you're in that shame response. So if you say, oh, I feel guilty, ask yourself, did I do something wrong? If you didn't do anything wrong because you're wearing something a certain way, or you're with someone, or doesn't matter what it is, if you're not doing anything wrong, then the question is this about who I am or something I did? You are not, shame says I am bad. You're not bad for loving who you want to love, or wearing your hair a certain way, or piercings or tattoos, or whatever the culture deems shameful. Well, when you harm other people, is that not shameful? I think I have a whole video on that. We're looking at the wrong ayab. But anyway, I digressed. So guilt says I did something wrong. Now, if you did do something wrong and you harmed another person, you did something intentionally, well, you may take accountability for that. Make amends where you can. However, if just by being who you are causes shame, well, that's not about you. That's about an intolerant culture of being anything outside of what is comfortable for them. And that is very, very narrow in my experience. So again, when you're feeling that shame, ask yourself, is this about who I am and how I move in the world, or something I did? Now, I'm going to encourage all of you that this shame, I've seen it drive people to live smaller lives, to not love who they want to love, to not pursue the dream job that they wanted to pursue, because they are so afraid of this toxic social awareness that wants to control your identity, that it keeps your life small. And then you wonder why you're depressed. You wonder why you're anxious every time you go out to do something that's normal, or just to go out and have fun with friends, that you're rushing, you're shaking, because you're so afraid of being found out. As a society, I think we can do much better there. We can do much better there. Number 5, this is a big one, a core emotion. This is my favorite emotion, joy. The purpose of joy, you living in the fullness of your joy. So if you can have awareness around your anger, take a look at what you're grieving, exploring what you're feeling with respect to your fears and shame. The more you can create awareness around that, the deeper you can feel the joy in your life. It's about our expansion and connection with one another. Within our cultural context, I've seen if you're too joyous, what happens? Don't get too happy. There's fear of envy and judgment. Don't get too happy. Leshinti mabsuta. What do you mean? I'm happy. What's wrong with being happy? And so don't tell anybody about the good things that are happening to you عشان هن بحطوا العين عليكي. So you can live in that fear. You can live in that, I'm going to keep myself small. I can't express my joy, but we're real comfortable at expressing our victim mentality. We're real good at expressing our victim mentality. I'm saying, well, can we find joy within one another? That's what I love about this community. We celebrate each other, and it's so cool. Are we not allowed to feel good in all things, not just weddings? Can we feel good in someone just being alive? Why does it have to be tied to status or masadi? Why can't we be in the fullness, in the joy of just being ma'bad? Why can't we celebrate each and every one of you? We can't do that because generationally, with the trauma and all these things that have happened, and external society saying, Arab, you need to be a certain way. And how much have we adopted that? So I say, how do we move forward as a society to be more joyous and celebrate? We're good at celebrating our food. We're good at celebrating our music, our dance, so much, our art. We come from an incredibly rich culture, incredibly. And my hope is that we can continue to celebrate that. There are people on this live right now who are doing some incredible things. We celebrate you. We celebrate you. All right. Any questions? Let's see. Oh gosh. Oh God, here we go. You know what's funny? Because Mita's not here. She goes, Tiffany goes off the rails when she looks at the comments. I don't know who this person is. Your name is written in Arabic. Your name is Tiffany. You have no right to preach. I'm not preaching. You're going to try and put me down, Ashan Ismi Tiffany, because Ana Americaniya. You're going to try and put me down for saying, why can't we feel in the joy of Ihna al-Arab? What is going on within you that you would want to put somebody down who's being of service to the community, who's saying, why can't we be in the fullness of our joy and accept one another and love one another? What's happening within you? Who hurt you growing up? What sadness are you holding? What fear of having a woman named Tiffany, bint Arabiya, Waldano Aisha في America? Why would you, within you, create some awareness? Now I'm calling you out because what's so funny is that every time I talk about our joy, our self-compassion, is where I get the most vehement responses. Why? What is happening? So with that said, Allah ma'ak, I wish you the very best, and I hope you find your peace. Okay. All right. I haven't done, Mira calls it the khalto bahdala. I haven't done one of those in a long time because she monitors all the comments. Oh my gosh. I'm crashing out, as my kid says. You're crashing out, Mom. Yeah, I'm crashing out. Khalas, ana fakat. It's so ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And I'm not the one. I told you guys, I'm a anger, I've worked on my anger. You want to see anger? I'll show you anger. Okay, back on track. Any questions? Any questions? Let's see here. I know you guys, if you guys are new here, those that have been around have seen me crash out multiple times. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Let's see. All right. Let's see. Okay, nobody, I think people had questions earlier. I can't, let's see. Let's see. Oh, thank you. Why? I love you too. I love this community. I love this community. This community has healed me in ways that I can't even articulate. It heals that little girl that felt powerless. All right. Now, وين احنا? Let's see. Those that are writing in Arabic, you guys know Mira's not here. Oh, translate, Ashuf. Somebody taught me that. I guess there's no translation. Okay. Let's talk about an emotional let's see. Yes. How do you deal with Arab parents not accepting your partner who is not the same religion or culture? Thank you. All right. Yes, I'll answer that. We're going to look at it within the 5 core emotions. Now, your parents may be afraid. Typically, when Arab parents do not accept your partner of the same religion or culture because there's a fear, ask only you know your parents, yes. What do you think they may be afraid of if you go outside of religion or outside of culture? Are they afraid of what the Nas are going to say? Are they afraid that only they can keep you safe? Because for your parents, you going outside of what they know, they may be afraid that you will not be safe. So part of it is, depending on how open or closed your parents are to feedback, is to reassure them that you are safe, your partner's safe, that you may be an adult now and they raised you well and they raised you smart, that whatever anxiety they may be feeling, part of it is how do you build with them and with your partner to help them feel more safe with the partnership. With that said, some Arab parents will use it as a means of control. They want to control you. I need you to marry someone from this religion, this culture, heck. And I remember my grandfather had the list was so narrow in who we were allowed to marry. It even had to be from the same clan. That's how rigid, because he needed the control of the family. So you really need to ask yourself, is it because my parents are afraid that I'm going to be unsafe, or is it for control? Sometimes with Arab parents, you need to give them some time. Those that are more reasonable, you want to give them more time. Those that may be more rigid and more controlling, well, you can give them all the time in the world, and they still won't accept your partner until maybe a baby comes. And then I've seen them loosen up a little bit when there's grandchildren involved. Sometimes the love that you have for another person may require you to say goodbye to your parents. And it's not because you don't love them, is that their fears and their inability to self-reflect and to be more open may directly move you towards saying goodbye to them. That's not because of you. There's no shame. You didn't do anything wrong. For whatever reason, they don't want to be able to let that go. And that's not on you. That's on them. And I'm really hoping Arab parents will open their minds and their hearts and self-reflect that their children always want to be around you. They love you. They care about you. Yet when you try and control someone too long, or you try and destroy their identity or try and put them down, human need is to survive. And many times people cannot tolerate being in those environments for too long. Hope that helps. All right, let's see. What do you do after recognizing you didn't do, let's see. So for shame, what do you do after recognizing that you didn't do something wrong? Therapy? Well, therapy is one avenue. You know, I'm a therapist, and what do I say? No therapy is better than poor therapy. You can heal in many different ways. You can heal through art, through music, through dance, through lots of things. However, that shame, especially if you have a trauma history, you may benefit from talking to a good therapist that's a good fit for you to loosen up some of those messages, because they can be very intense. I say we come from a culture where the family, the social awareness, it's like threaded in us. Hick. Different than other cultures where they could cut off their families, especially here in the US. Like, and whatever they do, that's them, right? They put their elderly family in the home, and then it's the Arab families that are visiting their relatives that are feeding them. I digress. But my point is, those messages, it can be embedded in your skin, and that's how intense it is. So therapy can be very helpful in releasing some of that. But again, you could release it in many different ways. Therapy is just one avenue. Okay. Let's see, Basima, therapy is expensive. Habibti, oh my gosh, it is. And my rates are expensive too. I don't know what to tell you. I try and do low fee groups. It is expensive depending on where you are in the world. It's outrageously expensive. And I can say that it's a choice to invest in yourself. And many times as Arab, we are not that great. We're good at investing in ourselves, maybe in cars or material things. Yet when it comes to our own emotional health and wellness, yeah, probably not that great. And I always say the more you can invest in yourself, it comes back to you. Let's see. All right, let's move into tools for a little bit. So an emotional regulation tool is, now I'd like all of you, if you were interested in trying this for yourself, name an emotion. Name the emotion that you are feeling right now. Out loud, maybe in the chat, or silently to yourself. Just name an emotion. Take a deep breath, connect with your body, and ask yourself, what? Yes, very good. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Crystal. Yes. So thank you for having the courage to share that in the comments. Okay. Now, what I'd like you to do is when you name that emotion, place one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. Now you're connecting with your body. It may bring up a lot of grief and a lot of sadness. It may bring up uncomfortable emotions. Okay. Just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's not good for us. So when you place your hand, you're saying, I affirm you. I see you. And on your belly, this is where we hold a lot of our personal power, is in our belly area. You take a deep breath, inhale slowly. And then you exhale slowly for 6 seconds as you are blowing out into a straw. So as you do this and you find the rhythm of your breath, just notice you're bearing witness to the emotion that you're feeling. You're validating it. If you're uncomfortable, if you want to get out of this, that's very normal. That's okay. It's about practicing, connecting with yourself and your body. That emotion is information. You don't need to act. You don't need to do anything with it. Is to say, this emotion is pointing me to where I need to heal, or pointing you to where you may want to make some shifts or changes. And sometimes that could be terrifying, and that's okay. It's an emotion. It's normal. And just notice your body as you continue to connect. Regulation of your body comes before problem solving. So the reason why many of you ruminate, trying to solve the problem, and you just keep going and going, what's happening is you're not regulated first. So I always encourage people, if you can just connect with your body, name the emotion, do a couple of deep breaths, regulate your body. Sometimes you're so activated that maybe you need a cold shower. Maybe you need to do intense exercise. You want to regulate your body first. It will slow your brain down, and then you can move into the problem solving. But if you're moving into trying to problem solve when your body is like this, it's going to be more challenging for you. And then you beat yourself up for not figuring out the problem, and then you ruminate more, and then it's a wash, rinse, repeat. So your emotions, the more you can connect, is a wealth of information if you pay attention to it. So if you get into good habits, I know every time when I was first learning this, every time I walk through the door, because we're so good at emotional suppression, we override our body signals every day, all day long. And so then you wonder why you're at a point where you're so depressed or you're so anxious. If you can get into really good daily habits. Now with Arab, I make jokes with my clients a lot, like, okay, Arab, every day, all day long, where having that level of awareness, say, what am I feeling? Where am I at? So every time I would walk through a doorway, or every time I would get into my car, I would take a minute to go, where am I at? Oh, I just finished having a conversation with someone that left me feeling irritated. Okay, then you take a couple of deep breaths and say, what's irritating me about that situation? And then you walk yourself backwards, right? You walk yourself back to what's at the crux of that. Sometimes it takes a few minutes. What I love about my Arab is once you give tools, the ability to understand it and work with it is very, very high. That's why that's why we need more culturally aware therapists, because in my experience, it's incredible where you can give just a few tools and then they get it and they run with it, and it's amazing to watch. So with that said, when it comes to emotional regulation, start small, connect with your breath, recognize where you feel it in your body, and the more you practice it, the better you'll get at it. But most of us were taught to disconnect from our bodies, disconnect from our emotions, because if you had an emotion, what happened? You were physically, for many of us, especially in my generation, physically punished. So if you had an emotion, you were hit. So obviously, as an adult, you don't want to feel things because feelings equated to punishment. So it makes sense. All right. How are we doing? Let's see. So I would encourage all of you to practice this one emotional regulation skill and see if that will help lower your anxiety or minimize some of your depression by honoring what you're feeling. And most of you, more often than not, your feelings are very well justified. 100%. We do not come from a very easy society. And then we're in this world that's absolutely off the rails. Okay. All right, where are we? Let's see. Are we done? Are we done? Should you guys ready to do one more? How much time do I have? Uh-oh. Okay. Let me talk about this one. Okay. Faith and emotions. Now, this is a big one for within our cultural context. Now, it doesn't matter what religion you are. Faith does not cancel emotions. It supports you through them. I think we forget that for those of you that have faith or believe in faith, it does not cancel your emotions. It supports you through them. Emotional suppression is not sabr. I have a whole video on that I won't get into, but emotional suppression is not sabir. Dare I say, emotional awareness increases our humility by saying, I need to call upon my faith to ask for patience for me to move through these feelings because they're hard. Your sadness is not a weak faith. I don't know why I get emotional around that. Your anger is not a lack of spirituality. Your patience is not emotional suppression. Because so many times we use faith to not expand us or connect us. Sometimes we use faith to control and to keep us down. And so I get emotional because faith is so much a part of who we are. And to see it used to harm us and not feeling our feelings is challenging for me, particularly as a therapist, to say, whatever your faith calls upon you, whether it's fear or grief or anger, this is normal. And how can you move through that without punishing yourself? Or having your parents tell you God is going to punish you, when that's, at least according to my faith and what I believe, God never punishes us. God gives us opportunities to expand and grow in the lightness of the Creator. And that's what this community is. It's about seeing the light within one another. The light in me sees the light in you. I can see and validate and acknowledge your pain. And through acknowledging that, we all rise together in our own light, in our own joy. That's the crux of what we're doing here. This is why we lean into our feelings. We lean into our feelings to be able to be compassionate towards one another, not harm one another as a result of our feelings. So I'm going to end with saying your emotions are not your fault, but they are your responsibility. And that if you're waiting for your mom or your dad or that amo that hurt you or that cousin that tried to destroy you, and waiting for them to make amends with you or to make it okay for you. I'm telling you, more often than not, people that move in that way in the world, they're not going to give you what you need. You have to give that to yourself and take responsibility. Say, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm resentful. What do I need to do to work on my own resentments? How can I take responsibility for that? And sometimes it's a hard truth to say, I do not want this in my life anymore. And within our cultural context, it's extremely difficult. And I'm here to say that's okay. We need to all take accountability and responsibility for how we move in this world. And you may want to ask yourself, I'm going to leave this live with you asking yourself, which emotion do I avoid most? What do I not want to feel? What emotions run my relationships? Are your relationships run by fear, like many of our Arab parents? Which I understand them. This is not a knock. Does the emotion I avoid because I want lacking a vulnerability. I'm afraid to be a vulnerable with my partner. And then you wonder why they may not want to, they leave you because they're tired of trying to reach you, but you won't allow them in. What would you change if I listened instead of suppressed? So what would change if I listened to leaning into my fear, leaning into my anger or my shame? What would change? So I'm going to ask each and every one of you to, if this live was meaningful, to practice naming one emotion daily. Just one emotion. Today, my body felt. And if you just do that and start there, my sense is you will get good at it because we're Arab and we're good at everything. All right, you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That is it for today's live Wadih Wednesday. We are so blessed to have this community. Thank you again. Please send us your DMs on topic ideas. I always love that. Sometimes we definitely hear what you guys are saying. We listen. We try and read every comment. Some not so good, but we still read them because we want to learn and grow. And this is so new, that such a new environment. We want to grow with one another. So your feedback is always so important to us. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Have a blessed day. As we say here at Community for International Arab, nawar titnawar. The light in me sees the light in you, and may you go forward, naming your feelings, honoring yourself, and creating a joyful life. Take care, everybody.